I wish I could have this playing behind me, but copyright issues, I can't. I don't know. So I got a piece of hair, cat hair. But pretend this is in the background. Pretend this is back there. Pretending that my fireplace really works and that we're all sitting down to a nice cup of hot chocolate on this May day. It's chilly, it's rainy, it's ucky. We all want to sit bed on the couch with comforters and blankets and get all nice and snuggly and enjoy a good book. So, buckle in. This is going to be a good one. We have done the Welcome to the DeLuise book series. I'm Christina, K-R-I-S-T-I-N-A. This is where we read books and talk books. No special effects here, no theme music, none of that stuff going on here. And I'm trying to learn sign language, so it's nice to meet you. And your name is? I'm Christina. I think I just did this already. This is the DeLuise book series, and be sure to check out the Star Trek Next Generation Friday recap episodes. Also, Friday afternoon, the If Then. If you like this author, then maybe you'll like this one. And Flashback Mondays, where we're talking about 2010 Romantic Time Book Review Magazine. We're doing historicals, contemporary romance, suspense, mystery, urban, paranormal, harlequins, erotica. We're talking about all of that. So please check that out on Fridays. So we have talked about Skye O'Malley through book 1. And we finished her lead character story in All Sweet Tomorrows. And we did her brother Khan's story and Aiden's in A Love for All Time. And This Heart of Mine. Are these children ever going to learn Velvet's story? And now Patrick, and Valentina. Valentina is the oldest daughter of Aiden and Khan from this book. And she's going on this, let me back up here. I'm a little ahead of myself here. Skye O'Malley is our heroine. She has been through more than Claire Beecham Randall Fraser has been through. Woman has been through, she's got a whole bunch of kids now. She's got over 40 grandkids now. She's caring for about 10 different estates now. They're still muddled with the Queen, Elizabeth Tudor. Adam is her husband. And I didn't write them all down. I should have. But, so, Con O'Malley is Aiden's father. Is Valentina's father. Con and Aiden are married. They're husband and wife. And they have Elizabeth, Colin, Bevelyn, Margaret, James, Robert. Robert is the betrothed of Annie, and Henry Sturmeister is the betrothed of Bedlam. And then Robert Southwood, or Robin as we call him, he's a child of Skye, and I forget which. I didn't write it down on my cheat sheet. I didn't print that part up. So anyways, we are starting this story in the earlier versions. I like because they list all the characters here, so you know who they all are, right? The earlier versions. This one has come into the Sinster era and have started doing family trees. So you can see how they're all related. I just love these books. I love the Skye O'Malley books. So we're starting the book in July 1st, 1600. And we know that the queen dies in a few years. And I will say that Valentina is an extremely spoiled child. All right, so she's pushing 20s. She's almost to her 20s. Just a second here. And it's Valentina's fault that she is so spoiled, and she makes these stupid demands, and her family allows her to do this, and she puts lives in jeopardy. So these are my thoughts when I finally remembered what's going to happen as I was rereading the book. And I'm just like, at the different times during the book, I'm sitting there going, Valentina, was it worth it? Was it worth it? Was it worth it? And then you have to think that if an author engages you to the point where you're screaming at the book, just like you're in a soap opera, and the guy's going to turn the corner, you're like, no, don't turn the corner, don't turn the corner. Same thing. If an author gets you involved that you care enough to scream and yell and hate and scream and all this kind of stuff and call them names, then it's a good book because they've engaged you. And that's what sharing a good book with other people is, telling them what it was about and engaging them, getting their feedback, getting their interest in the book, so maybe they'll go read the book. And Valentina does that because you're sitting there going, you did all of this because the need to know, you put lives in danger, and you went through hell in a handbasket, and you have to sit there and go, was it worth it? Well, we'll have to get to that to see Valentina's answer. So this book starts about 10 years after the previous book. Summer, autumn of 1600. Valentina is now Lady Barrows. She married for about 3.5 weeks. Her husband goes out horseback riding, and there's a horse accident. He gets thrown off the horse, breaks his neck, dies instantly. So Nan is her tying woman who comforts her, and Alan is the head groom that takes a message to Perk Royal where her parents are. And the priest tells her that she's the heir, that Henry had 0 living relations, so she is the complete heir. She gets the estate, the whole 9 yards. So the women come from the village and they prepare the body for burial, etc., etc., etc. And then her father arrives from Perk Royal. They live not too far down the road, like an hour's horseback ride. Also, Skye lives another hour's horseback ride. So we're in chapter 2. It's the summer, autumn of 1600, or chapter 1 because that was the prologue. Anne Elizabeth St. Michael is angry with Valentina. That's her sister. She's angry because, see, what happened was, and this is the story way back when, this was some things that parents pulled, is that the oldest child has to marry first, and the next one can't marry until the oldest child marries. So Valentina's felt the obligation to marry somebody she really didn't care about, but could be comfortable with, just because her sister insisted that she wanted to be married and married quickly. And it turns out her sister's been a little promiscuous, so she has to get married, because if she doesn't get married until X number of months down the road, she'll be a little in the family way at the ceremony, and that's a no. So she's got to get married now. So, and Valentina, being a widow now, is inconvenient to her because they must go in mourning. And she's like, no, 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 no. Because she's in the family way. She's a little bratty kid in the family way. So Valentina tells her that England's trade has been halted due to the war with Spain, and they're all feeling the pain. Some of the Skye siblings are not as wealthy as they used to be. They joined in with Hugh O'Neill, the Earl of Tyrone, in his rebellion, and Ireland. So they joined in, and they lost all this money. And Colin, her twin brother, says that the Earl of Essex mismanaged the whole thing and lost 1,200 men. So that's not good. Then they talk about Elizabeth Tudor and how Bevan is marrying the Irishman Henry. Father Lord Glyn is English, and Glyns of Glenshannnon are loyal to the Queen. And they continue to listen to Annie complain about that Annie is marrying for love, and they go through all that. And they do a lot of teasing in that first chapter. My pages are stuck together. But like I said, she was, I gotta marry now. And apparently there's a really good reason why she's gotta marry now. We went through all that. So then we get a few updates on the family and what's been going on with them. And I'm going to share a lot of this book, so be prepared. Like I said, I wish we had a little fire going behind us and a little cup of hot chocolate. I know it's May, but it's a little chilly today, and it's just one of those days where it could use a little fire. It's raining outside, a little fire, some blankets, maybe a cozy on the couch or something. Get all nice and warm and toasty and sit down to a good book, a good series of books. Their vast and scattered family began arriving for Anne's wedding. Their Aunt Moscow Skye would bear up most of the guests, for many were her children and grandchildren. Up from Devon came Captain Murrough of Flaherty and his pretty wife Joan and their 6 children. The family had teased Murrough for years over the size of his family, pretending amazement that he had any children at all, considering that most of his time was spent at sea. Morrow, the skin, wind, bronze, his blue eyes crinkled at the corners from years of squinting into the sun, bore their jibes good-naturedly. He insisted that his brood of 3 sons and 3 daughters proved that, when he was at home, he spent his time there to his best advantage. It is chilly. I am freezing. Willow, the Countess of Alshire and Skye de Malley's eldest daughter, reached Queen's Malvern in a convoy of 5 coaches with a dozen outriders. They thundered up gravel with great importance. Thank God she is not staying here, Lord Bliss laughed when his sister reported the arrival. Why must Willow travel with so great and ostentatious a party? She and James will not ride with the children, said Skye. Not that they are all that young any longer, but they are rambunctious and a noisy brood. It astounds me that my prim and proper, oh so English daughter would have mothered such offspring. Like their grandmother, Lord Bliss murmured. Ignoring him, Lady Moscow continued. Willow and James rode in the first coach. There was a coach for their 4 daughters and another for their sons, a coach for the luggage, and another for all of the servants. I will say for Willow that she is a thoughtful guest and does not burden my servants with her family. Of course, James and the 2 eldest boys brought their own horses. Henry and Francis considered themselves quite above the 2 younger boys and are apt to lose patience with them on long journeys. With the horses, they have the option of riding when the confines of the coach become too close. From Devon came Lady de Moscow's 3rd son, the Earl of Lambeth, his countess, and their family. Robert Southwood, called Robin by his intimates, will shortly be celebrating his 37th birthday. 37 years. That's how much time has gone by in these books. Can you imagine? These are so awesome. Um, uh, he was the handsome image of his father, but lacked Joffrey Southwood's slightly sardonic look. For Robin was a happy man who had led a singular fortunate life, never knowing serious sorrow until he was left a widower with three tiny daughters, all in infancy. And then he saw Angel Christmas and fell absolutely 100% in love spontaneously and were married by the queen or the queen's priest or whatever you want to call him. Her marriage to their father had given Angel, they're talking about Angel Christmas. Her marriage to their father had given them not only a loving mother but eventually a household of siblings. He had three daughters, Elsbeth, Catherine, and Annie. Um, 9 months after their father's marriage to Angel, she had borne her husband his first son, Joffrey, after his grandfather. Young Joffrey was followed in 51, 91, 94, and 96 by three brothers. A year ago, to Angel and Robin's delight, baby Laura arrived. Robin and his wife were to stay with his half-sister Deidre Lady Blackhorn, and her husband, whose home was nearby. Deidre and her husband were the parents of 7 children, 3 sons and 4 daughters. Lord and Lady Blackthorn would also host Deidre's brother Patrick Lord Burke. At 31, Patrick was yet a bachelor. Gentle Deidre despaired of her brother ever finding a wife, for not only had he turned aside all of her sisters and their mother's attempts at matchmaking, he did not even seem interested in finding a wife. Arriving first, already comfortably settled at Queen's Malvern, by the time her elder sister entourage thundered importantly up the driveway, were Velvet de Marsco Gordon, the Countess of Brockern, and her husband Alex. Each summer they travelled from their home Dunbroch in the Scottish Highlands, where the Earls of Brockern had settled for several hundred years. Their 4 sons ranged from 7 to a set of 3-year-old twins. Alex had also a 10-year-old daughter by a long-forgotten mistress. He seemed to fit the baby legitimate, and although the child, Sybil, had been in her natural mother's care for the early months of her life, she did not remember her, and that was all in here. The bride's family was to host the groom's family at Perrock Royal. Robert Grayson was the only surviving son of Arthur and Margaret Grayson, Baron and Baroness Renton of Holly Hill. Apart from Robert, his parents had been singularly unfortunate with their offspring, losing the 2 sons born in 5 years following Robert's birth. After that, poor Lady Margaret had suffered a period of infertility until Robert was 9, when his mother birthed his now 14-year-old sister Saxana. 2 more miscarriages followed. At last, Pamela, now 8, was born. The Graysons were a small estate bordered in Perrock Royal to the northeast. Had known Anne St. Michael all of her life. They were delighted to have such a charming and wealthy young lady for a daughter-in-law. Also attending the wedding were Sir Robert Small, Lady DeMarco's business partner, and his eldest sister, Dame Cicely, who was a grandparent to all of Valentina's generation of cousins and the generation that followed. The Smalls were very much part of the family. Outsiders assumed some blood tie, which neither the St. Michaels nor the DeMarcos bothered to deny. Sir Robert and Dame Cicely were in the early 80s and as lively as ever. And we met them in book 2. All Sweet Tomatoes. They've been with the family this long, over 30-something years. They've been with the family. He was the captain of the ship she met when she was in Algiers. Skye was in Algiers. So, they had a gypsy caravan came by, and this gypsy lady said, "In time, lady, all will be clear," she said, and moved away to tell another fortune. Oh, let me back up here. She said, "Soon you will learn a secret long kept. You will journey a great distance to seek that which you already have." Which you already have. So you're going to go on a fool's chase, wild goose chase. You will also find that which you have long sought, that which you also believe has eluded you, a lost love found. It has been here all along, but you cannot see it, and you will not see it until you have fulfilled your destiny. And then Paddock and Velvet talk about the fact that she never saw her husband of 3 weeks intimately. He would come to bed in the dark with his shirt on, lift her shirt, do stuff, and that was it. They never saw each other without clothing. And then we have a little bit of Patrick's background here. She got him lost in the maze. She's going off again every video. Oh, my hot chocolate's getting cold. Bing, 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 bing. 11. I was lucky today. The other 2 times she didn't bing at all. If she was Patrick's favorite cousin, he was certainly her favorite cousin as well. Although he was 11 years her senior, they had always been close friends. As a little girl, it was Patrick Burke to whom she had always gravitated. He had been at court in his youth, having served as a page in the household of the Earl of Lincoln, whose countess was a cousin of Aidan St. Michael's. When he grew too old to be a page, his mother sent him to Oxford. He studied there for 2 years before spending a year at sea with his elder brother Murrah. During the first year, he discovered that, like his father, Niall Burke, he was a land lover through and through. Since then, Patrick has spent most of his time on his estates at court, performing small, discreet services for the Queen. He had joined the Earl of Essex expedition to Cadiz in 1596, when the English captured and sacked the Spanish city. And I was thinking about this because, did I write it down? So Valentina is the daughter of Aidan and Khan. Okay, now Khan is the half brother of Skye. They have the same father, but Khan is from the second wife, her father's second wife, Annie, and she's been deceased. And then we get a little bit of Nan's background. But it was the faithful Nan who bore her captivity in Ireland and suffered at the hands of my grandfather Fitzgerald and his family. It was she who knew. Oh wait. All right. No, they're not gonna bring that up. Aidan had been falsely. She had been kidnapped. Her cousins, the Fitzgeralds, had decided they were going to kidnap her and make her marry him out there in Ireland, and it didn't work because they were going to have her con accused of treason, and when it backfired, they decided to kidnap Aidan and sell her to have the Spanish sell her to Algiers and get some gold that way. So that's what happened, and then she comes back and Nan helps her. But it was the faithful Nan who bore your captivity in Ireland and suffered at the hands of my grandfather Fitzgerald and his family. It was she who nursed you and kept you alive until I could reach you. Still, in all, I did manage to rescue you even before your father could arrive. In doing so, I met Lord Glynn, who sheltered me from Fitzgerald and their wrath behind Glenshannon's sturdy walls until Con could come for us. Now Bevan is to wed young Henry Sturmeister, his father's namesake and heir. One day my daughter will be mistress of the grand magnificent castle. I can hardly believe it. You have done well by your daughters, Mamma. Annie will one day be mistress of Holly Hill, and Bevan will have her Irish castle. You will one day have to find an earl for Maggie, for she is determined to have the best wedding of us all. Only an earl will justify the expense. So then they talk about Valentina possibly getting married again, and Valentina's like, no, she's not going to do it. So then, in the summer of 1596, Con O'Malley had taken his family to Infocema, the ancestral home of the O'Malleys of Bidnot, to see their grandmother, Annie O'Malley. Annie O'Malley was 60 that year, and seeing the deteriorating conditions in which his mother lived, Con sought to bring her back to England with him, but she would not come. Her warm brown eyes were sympathetic as she told him, I was born in Ireland, I have lived my entire life here, I shall die here, and I will say no more about it. He accepted her decision, though he was most unhappy about it. His brothers, through stupidity and foolishness, had lost all of their wealth they had gained in the years they had sailed ships for England's sake, harassing the proud duns along the Spanish Main, embittered by their losses, blaming everyone but themselves, particularly Elizabeth Tudor, and for all the good she did. Brian Shane and Seamus O'Malley currently involved themselves in petty piracies along the Irish and Scottish coast. In the summer of 1596 they were already embroiled with the Earl of Tyrone and his rebellion. It was a lost cause, Con knew it, and his brother's action made him fear for his mother's future safety. It was during the summer of 1596 that Bevan St. Michael, aged 11, met Lord Glen's eldest son and namesake Henry Sturmeister. The future master of Glensham was 17 and fresh from study in France. He thought himself quite the travel sophisticate, but one look at Bevan St. Michael, who had her grandmother Fitzgerald's glorious chestnut hair and light blue eyes, and Henry Sturmeister had been lost. He told his parents, who had been seriously considering a match with one of his cousins, that he should have no wife but Mistress St. Michael. Seeing his determination, they agreed, so long as no fault could be found with either the girl or her family. Bevan, however, had not been ready to consider such a serious involvement. She was caught between childhood and womanhood, and Harry's passionate avowals of eternal love frightened her. When he realized his mistake, he had gone more gently with her, and by summer's end, Bevan was half in love. She spent 2 summers at Glenshannon Castle, endearing herself to her future in-laws and falling more in love with her Harry. In the summer of 1599, the Earl of Essex has taken his army, 17,000 men, into Ireland to put down the Earl of Tyrone, who with aid from Spain had mounted the most serious rebellion against English to occur in many years. The Spanish did not care what happened to the Irish, they merely saw a good chance to harass the Queen. Essex, despite his army and vast resources, was no threat to them, for he hardly ventured beyond the Dublin Pale. Still, in all, it had not been a summer for a great gently reared English maiden to venture into Ireland. So Lady Glen and her eldest son had come to England on O'Malley's ship, so that Harry Sturmeister might formally be betrothed to Mistress Bevan St. Michael. Now, on the 12th day of October in the year 1600, a huge gathering at Berwick Royal to witness the nuptials of the young pair. The family was joined this time by all of the neighboring nobility and several of St. Michael's friends from court. Lord Bliss had been a part of Elizabeth Tudor's circle, but several years ago, prior to Jemmy's birth, they had ceased to going to court for all of New Year's festivities. Bevan was radiant with a diadem of diamonds and pearls, her long hair streaming in the warm autumn breeze. Her satin gown was the color of heavy cream and embroidered heavily with diamond-seeded pearls and gold thread. She was attended by her younger sister Margaret and several cousins, Sybil Gordon, Mary Elizabeth Edwards, Thalia, and Penelope Blake. The maids wore bright yellow silk gowns and carried bouquets of white damask roses with gold ribbons. So they talk on about that, and the wedding goes on. And they're like, what should we do with Valentina? She's a widow now, and she's got no purpose, blah, blah, blah. So they decide that they're going to send her to court. So she leaves for court. Why, Nan? Valentina teased her faithful someone. Where is your sense of daring do? I left it behind in Ireland 20 years back, my lady, came the dour reply. Well, you had best find it again, Nan warned her mistress mischievously. I have been a little country girl my life. I have spent all my time dreaming about love that doesn't exist for me, and I never made time for frivolous things. That is why I am going to court, Nan, for fun. And Nan's like, God help us, you sound like Skye. So, 1601, chapter 2, we are in court. I'm gonna catch up with the queen a little. All her life she had heard the stories told by her aunt and parents of the improbable adventures at Queen Elizabeth's court. Her cousins had spoken glowingly about their own colorful and exciting days at the social pinnacle of their world. It was strange to try to reconcile those tales of their past to what Valentina found. The court was no longer vibrant, it was a somber, sometimes dreary place of dark mistakes and the ghosts of past triumphs, a haunted place. The air was filled with anxious expectations having to do with the future, a future in which Elizabeth Tudor would have no part. The Queen's most of the famous men who surrounded Elizabeth like pearls encircling a diamond were gone. Robert Dudley, the Earl of Leicester, had died in the autumn of 1588, rendering England's great victory over Spain's armada bitter for Elizabeth Tudor. Sir Francis Walsingham had died in 1590, and Sir Christopher Hatton in 1591. The Queen's cousin Henry Carey, Lord Hudson, had passed in '96. He was the son of Mary Boleyn, the Queen's aunt, and had suspected that Harry Coley was actually Henry VIII's son, for Mary Boleyn had been in the Queen's bed long before her sister Anne had come from France to capture Henry Tudor's heart. Elizabeth had been deeply fond of Henry in spite of all the rumors, and Lord Hudson's loyalty had always been strictly to the Queen. But the death that would still bring tears to her eyes was that of William Cecil Lord Burleigh on August 4th, '98. Cecil, her beloved friend, her wondrous, clever Secretary of State, had been with her from the very beginning. Cecil, who had first and always worked in the Queen's best interest. Lord Burleigh had, however, left the Queen a most precious legacy, his even cleverer second son, Sir Robert Cecil. Robert Cecil was a small, hunchbacked man. He was extremely uncomfortable in his appearance, and he was a worthy successor to both his father and Francis Walsingham. Although Robert Cecil had first stood for Parliament when he was only 18, and risen rapidly in the Queen's government due to not only nepotism but to his own extraordinary talents. So we catch up with that, and the Queen appoints Valentina, her mistress of maids, and while she's there, Willow gets her daughter also appointed to be one of the Queen's ladies. Later on, Patrick, and this is what I was talking about with the cousin situation. Patrick is Skye and Niall, and Aiden is Khan, so they're distant cousins because I was worried about that. So Patrick confesses his love for Valentina, and he says that he will wait for her. Why did you do that? She demanded. I was paying my debt to you, Val. It was a lie, and both he knew it. He meant to be a quick kiss, but something had happened to him when his lips met hers. He had not expected to find her mouth so honeyed. No, I love you. His eyes with their hint of silver met hers. For how long? Her upper teeth began to worry her lower lip. I cannot remember a time when I did not love you. I cannot even remember when the cousinly affection I had always felt turned into a man's feeling. And yet you let me wed Edward Burroughs, and she's pissing and hitting him, and why did you let me marry him if you really loved me, and all this kind of stuff. And then she also meets Thomas Ashburn, the Earl of Kent. And then Valentine is introduced as the new mistress to the maids. And let's see. We really don't. Mary Fitton had been put into the care of Lady Hawkins. There she miscarried of a son. Rash and reckless Mary, who had put on a man's great cape and strode boldly through the court to meet with her lover. Mary was in deepest disgrace. Like pretty little Elizabeth Vernon, she had taken a chance, but unlike Elizabeth, she had gambled and lost. The Earl of Southampton had married his lover, Mistress Vernon. The Earl of Pembroke would not. This sudden, harsh reality had frightened the 5 remaining maids of honor into unusually circumspect behavior. They huddled about the fireplace in the maidens' chamber, awaiting the arrival of both the girl chosen to take Mary's place and the new mistress of maids. And that's when Valentina is brought in. So she has her life at court, and Tom Aspern, the Earl of Kent, makes advances on her, and Paddock tells the Earl, she's mine. And the Earl's like, no, she's mine. So they're going to compete for her attention. And they're each going to try to do stuff with her. Then we catch up a little bit more with the council met at dawn. James Edward began. Essex had been summoned to appear before them last night, but he refused to come, claiming that Lord Grey had made an attempt on his life. This morning the Queen sent Lord Keeper Egerton, the Earl of Worcester, Sir William Knowles, and several others, including me, to Essex House to bring Robert Devereux before the Privy Council. The courtyard of Essex House was swarming with armed men, and although the Earl came out to greet us pleasantly enough, when the Lord Keeper told him that we had come to escort him to council, Essex behaved in a perfidious and rash fashion, claiming that he had been badly dealt with and that we had actually sought his life. His men cried out that we were abusing him and would betray him. They began to shout for our lives. Essex brought us into the safety of his house, and he locked him in the library, and then he leaves. And that plays out. He gets brought before the court, and he's executed. So then Valentina and Patrick, asked Thomas and Patrick continue to compete for Valentina's affection. Then we have May Day, and Khan comes to the court and says, everybody's got to come home. Mag is dying. As for Mistress Maggie, my lord, she is most obviously your daughter. She has a silver tongue and mischievous way about her that she's given us all fits of laughter. I have not laughed so much in years. Since your little lasses joined us, my side aches constantly. I will miss them both. Go now, take with them you, my Con, but send them back. As Valentina and Maggie curtsied to the Queen, Elizabeth said in a low voice, promise me you will return, Valentina. Valentina's lovely eyes were damp with emotion. I will come back, dear madam. You may rely on me. I will not fail you. And she promises to come back. I wish I had a chair for the... Oh. So then she sees Mag, and Mag is she's dying, and she's feverish, and she's delirious. Shoot, there you go. And she's delirious, and she spills the forbidden beans, and nobody knew she knew the forbidden beans. And she says, because Valentina is sitting with her while she's dying. And Mag voice whispers, I should not have listened. I should not have listened at Mistress Aiden's door when his lordship went in to her. Her head rolled from side to side as her breathing quickened. France, Mistress Aiden's in France. Forgive me, should not have listened. Mag, it's all right, Valentina said gently. Not in France. My mistress is not in France. There's a prince and a wicked king. Oh, Cluny, She is not sure the barn is his lordship's child. God forgive me, I should not have listened. Mistress Aidan does not know who the father of her barn is. At first Valentina did not comprehend what she was hearing. She is not sure the barn is his lordship's child. What child was Mag speaking of? They'll never know, muttered Mag. They'll never know, for his lordship accepted the barn, praise God. He loves little Mistress Valentina, but she doesn't look like either of them. Still, who is ever to know? Oh, I should not have listened. God forbid me. Ah, a cold hand clutched Valentina's heart as the words sank in. Was she not her father's child? What prince and what wicked king? And what did they have to do with this? What secrets had been kept from her? What had Mag listened to? For all the rest of the night, Valentina sat in agony. Who am I, she wondered, if I am not who I think I am? In the hour before dawn, old Mag opened her eyes and smiled sweetly at Valentina and said, I must go now, dearie. Clooney will not wait another minute. Then life fled from her eyes and she was gone. Bending, Val kissed Mag's brow. Farewell, my dear friend, and Godspeed. I wish, however, that you had not left before you explained yourself. Walking to the window, Valentina pulled back the draperies and opened the casements wide. The sky beyond the hills was rich gold with impending sunrise, and the air was crisp and fresh. How many autumn mornings had been exactly like this? It was always like this, and yet everything had changed for her. She knew that her mother held the key to the mystery that dying Meg had revealed, but Valentina also knew that until the old servant was buried, it would not be kind to burden her mother. She left the room to inform her parents of Meg's death. Margaret Feeney, known all her life as Meg, born in the village of Ballycolly in Ireland on the first day of January 1517, was laid to rest on the 25th of October 1601. Meg was buried in the cemetery Purrock Royal Church. She was buried next to Pina Clooney, her husband. The following morning, Aidan and her eldest daughter entered Meg's room to sort through the old woman's things and give away what was usable to those who were in need. Oh, look, Aidan cried softly. 'Tis a lock of your hair and your very first cap. How tiny that little cap is. You were such a beautiful baby, dear. My hair was copper-colored like yours when I was born. Aye, it was, but it fell out when you were about 6 months old. When it grew back, 'tis was dark brown, but it still has copper light. She reached out and stroked her daughter's head. Such beautiful hair, my dear. Who is my Valentine could not bear it any longer. Who is my father? She demanded. Aidan St. Michael paled and staggered slightly, grasped chair to her balance. What on earth do you mean? She managed to grasp. Mama, Valentine said clearly, I want to know who my father is. Valentina could feel the iron entering her soul. She knew she would need it, for she saw her mother's distress. You are my daughter, Valentina, and your father is Con O'Malley St. Michael. Who are the prince and the wicked king? Who mentioned the prince and the sultan to you? Who has told you these things? Valentina, Aidan shrieked. Oh God, why now? Meg spoke in her delirium. Mama, it appears that she listened outside a door and learned that you were not certain of the paternity of your eldest child. That there were 3 men involved, Papa, a prince, and a wicked king. That child was me, Mama. I want to know why you were not certain of your child's lineage. How could you keep such a secret from me? It is my right to know. And she's so indignant. And she's so self-righteous and pompous, it annoys the hell out of me. These are her folks. She was not adopted. These are her parents. And she gets on her self-righteous horse, and she's got to go right off, and they're all telling her, no, this is dangerous, slavery, all this kind of stuff. And she's like, no, I gotta go. And she's, this is stirring emotion. This is how an author grabs you in, and either it makes you feel bad, makes you feel excited, makes you feel angry. You're still feeling emotion. And that's the sign of a good author, that they draw you in like that. So she confronts both her parents, and Aidan tells her story. I had a cousin, Kevin Fitzgerald, born a bastard. The Spanish king wished to discredit the Amalia Infocema and your Aunt Skye in the eyes of the queen and her government. Your uncles were then raiding and pillaging under Queen England's protection along the Spanish Main. They were successful enough so that the King Philip's income was greatly reduced through the O'Malley. In the East Indies, your aunt's ships were beginning to take a tiny dent in the riches offered there, and the Portuguese, who were controlled by the Spanish, resented it. My grandfather and my cousin were recruited by the Spanish. They were to make it appear as if your father were involved in a plot against the Queen's life. He would be executed, your aunt's trading company would be confiscated and discredited, and the O'Malleys, their fine Irish temper ablaze, would turn on England. I and the wealth my father left me were to be their reward. Cavan was to marry me. My grandfather believed my riches would be turned over to him for his futile war against England. Cavan, however, planned on gaining respectability through our marriage and intended keeping my wealth for himself. The plot went awry. How, it doesn't matter, but old Lord Burghley needed one final piece of evidence against my cousin and his Spanish accomplice, who did not realize they were close to arrest. I was about to go to Cavan at his London inn and tell him that my wealth had been confiscated. I was so convinced that my cousin confederate decided that they must escape London that very night. The ship they were to sail on belonged to a renegade Spaniard who sailed for the Dey of Algiers as a merchant. His secret cargo was always fair young women. The Spanish suggested that Cavan bring me along. He said I would fetch a high price in the slave markets. That way my cousin would make a profit of me. That is oath, and Valentina was deeply shocked. That, my child, is the way of the East. A woman's worth is judged by the number of horses or camels or sheep or goats she will fetch. Human life is cheap. A woman's life particularly so. So I was rendered unconscious and taken aboard this vessel, where in the course of the voyage to Algiers she miscarried. In Algiers I was stripped naked to be examined by the purchasers. The Dey of Algiers himself decided to purchase me as a gift for the Sultan of the Ottoman Murad. I was shipped to Istanbul. On the very day of arrival there, I was presented as a gift to the new ambassador, the Khanate of Crimea, Prince Javad Khan. I was no longer Aden St. Michael, Valentina. I was renamed Marjala. I was told over and over that I must forget Aden St. Michael. The prince and I were happy together. He had come to Istanbul to forget a terrible tragedy. His twin brother Timur, as different from him as night and day, had murdered Javad Khan's entire family. It was believed that Timur was mad from birth, for he had always had unreasonable jealousy of his brother. The great Khan, their father, sent Javad away to ease his pain. I too was in great pain. I had lost my child, lost my identity. I had been torn from the husband I loved. I learned that even the Turkish to communicate, but this was not my real life. Yet I was told there was no hope of ever returning to England. And Java Khan falls in love with her. She meets Esther Kira, and it's Esther Kira that eventually saves her life, and she almost dies. Aiden almost dies through the course of it all. So then they decide, Valentina has decided that her mother is cruel for kept all this from her. She's very angry. She's very spoiled brattish. She gets on her righteous horse of indicity, and so they send for Patrick and Tom Ashbourne, her two suitors, and they tell everybody she's leaving, and they also tell Skye. There was no dissuading her. Khan sent for his elder sister, Skye O'Malley de Moscow, the family matriarch. She had come at once, disdaining her coach and riding across the autumn fields that separated her home, Queen's Malvern, from Pure Royal. Her husband Aidan rode beside her. She had always been a beautiful woman, and though she was shortly to celebrate her 61st birthday, time had not dimmed her beauty. Neither her face nor her body had aged appreciably after her 40th year. Her wonderful blue-green eyes, the same color as the water of the Kerry coast, were as alert as ever, and she missed nothing. Settling herself comfortably into her brother's library later that day, she listened as he explained what happened between Aidan and Valentina. Her gaze went to her beautiful niece and said, You're determined to go? I am. Then she must go, of course, Skye said. God's foot, shouted Aiden. Are you mad? You've been to the east. You know what it's like. Valentina is of age, Aiden. She is a wealthy widow and has the means to do precisely as she pleases. Oh, you can stop her. You could, for example, lock her in her room until she dies. Or you could force her to the altar and let her husband handle the problem. But she will hate you for it, and you know it. If she cannot be content until she goes, then she must go. And they arrange money and funding for it. And you get very angry at Valentina. She's putting all these lives at risk. She's putting all these ships at risk. She's doing all this stuff for her own little selfish person. And yeah, that's probably the point of the whole story. Her selfish person here. Valentina and Patrick have a romantic evening. Valentina goes and gets the potion from Skye to prevent childbirth. And she will not alter her thing. She's determined to go to the east. So then we have one little Paddock tells his parents that, excuse me, oh shoot, she's gonna get up in there. She lost her foot and fell. All right, so Paddock and they talk about his love for Valentina and how he plans on marrying her. And I just want to check something. Skye mentions, but it's in such passing that no one really pays attention to it. And I just wanted to bring it up. Just like a man, Skye punched her husband on his shoulders. Valentina had an unhappy first marriage, it seems. She married to please everyone but herself. So this time she wants to be certain. I've worried about Patrick for years, and God only knows his cousin would make him a perfect wife. But I'll not have her forced to it by him or by circumstances created by him. They must both be content to wed, and if they are not both content, then it must not be. And they also talk about the fact that Skye has another child in the East. Velvet had a daughter over yonder and had to leave her when she returned home. So that's going to be one of the next books. I think it's Darling Jasmine. So then they go to, she has to tell the queen. The queen asks her that she please come back. They set sail. Nelda goes with her. They meet the ruler of San Lorenz, who is Sebastian. He falls in love with Valentina. They end up spending a great amount of time there. He actually proposes marriage, and she's like, no. Then she meets with Kira. When we reach Istanbul, said Mura, and we speak with Estakira, we will give her this message to pass on to Valide, along with our request for Valentina's audience with her Sultan's mother. Will not, under the circumstances, refuse Valentina. I was not certain before now how we were going to arrange to see that lady. This, however, is our entry to her. The 3-ship convoy moved on past the Grecian Peloponnesus and up into the Aegean Sea. March had brought spring to the region, and each day was lovely with clear blue skies and bright sun. Who lives on the island? Valentina asked Mura. The island is deserted, although it is fertile. The Turks captured the Cyclades almost 40 years ago. There is a temple, I am told, which is left of an ancient temple on island's crest. The people believe that the island was created by Aphrodite, the goddess of love, and that the island is forbidden to be inhabited by mortals. So they're going to go ashore and they're going to talk to Kira. Uh, Lady Barrows, I am Simon Kira. I welcome you to our house. You speak English. Indeed, my lady, I do. For I spent 3 years in London with the English Kiras, a year with the French Kiras in Paris, and a year with the Hamburg branch of the family, and another year in Moscow. God willing, I will one day be head of the House of Kira. So it was necessary that I learn all I could of our more important banking centers. Is your grandmother not in good health, sir? It turns out she's 112. So she meets with uh, Valentina, and she recognizes her as Marijal's daughter. And that would be Aiden. That was her name. And she explains her story to her, and when Nur Yubanu died, that was the guy's mother. Safi hoped that she could gain Murad's complete attention, but the Sultan, having developed a taste for other women, was not of a mind to change his ways. Why should he? When the empire and all the surrounding lands would continue to combine with the fairest and most noble of virgins for his pleasure alone. Safi grew older, and Murad forgot the years, for he was constantly surrounded by youth. Mind you, the Sultan always gave Safi the respect due the mother of his heir, but it was not enough. Safi grew terribly embittered. Other sons were born to Murad, 19 in addition to Safi's son. Mehem, 83 daughters, 27 whom are living. Prince Mehed the heir was indulged and spoiled dreadfully by his mother. No one else to love but her son. And he had them murdered and stuff like that. So we'll just get past this. So then we're going into dangerous waters here. Arslan Bey was known to Murray O'Flaherty for the captains who traveled the Black Sea trade lanes for many years, and Arslan Bey, a loyal civil servant of the Sultan, had represented his master Kafit for 15 years. He was a mild-mannered man with a taste for comfortable living and an open-minded, practical nature. The two men greeted each other as old friends, and Murrow explained that his widowed cousin had a message that only could be delivered to the great Khan's mother. They had not realized, Murrow explained, that the Kari Tartars might not be in Kaffa. They persist in roaming the steppes every summer, said Arslan Bey, with a bemused expression. I do not understand. In the winter the steppes are bitter cold and extremely windy. In the summer they are no more hospitable, being arid and hot. Here in the Kaffa climate is mild and beautiful. But nevertheless, between the second and third moons of the spring, they depart. So they've got to go chase after them. So they got to do all that. So then she meets with Borte Kun. What will Borte Kun grant me an audience, do you suppose? Have you told her why I'm here? Murrow told her last night that it was your story to tell, Val. They are content to wait. Can you walk, Kitty? This is hot tea and wheat cereal we've grown accustomed to, bread and goat's cheese by the hearth. I'm starving, she cried, and roast your feet. What am I wearing? Who took my clothes? Fort Kant had servants undress you last night. They even bathed you. You were not wakened even by that. You snore, Val. He laughed, taking her hand. He led her into the central portion of the yurt, with the others already breakfasting. So he meets him, and she explains her story. The great Khan's mother says to Valentina, you are indeed a strong girl, for you did not catch and argue as I feared you might. Your clothing was absolutely soaking. Your disguise will be restored to you when you are ready to return to Kaffa. In the meantime, I assure you, you will not object to wearing the clothing of my people. Your people, But you are French, Madame, Valentina said. Lord Conte looked surprised. And how, child, did you know that? I've been so long that I have almost forgotten I was once a French woman. It's been almost 60 years since I saw France. And then she's like, well, her mother told her, and she explains who she is and explains why she has come. And the lady tells her she has her strip to see if there's a birthmark there. And there's no birthmark there. So she is not her granddaughter. So Javed Khan is not her father. So she's ruled one guy out. Then she's got to deal with the evil guy. And before this can happen, when she leaves the good people's tent, Java Khan's mother, the grandmother situation, she leaves them. They go on a shopping expedition, and they go in one of those carts that are carried by, in the olden days they had the veils, and they're carried by 4 guys with stuff, and so they go shopping, and she's carried and she gets drugged and she gets kidnapped, and the evil guys take her, and her own family cannot find her for quite a while, and she goes through a lot, and she's kidnapped. And if you're kidnapped to another country, and your frame of mind and your brainwashing, when the boss tells you, or when the prince tells you, or when the sultan tells you, this is our new slave, you will train her. Well, that's what they believe. This is the new slave, we will train her. She can say anything she wants, but the boss said this, and we have to believe this or we will be killed. So he Tamar Khan is within the county. Bort Khan has heard of his foreign girl. He has heard that she is Javas Khan's daughter. Hurry, the girl is in danger. And she gets kidnapped. So they kidnap her, and she says, you are the daughter of Java Khan, and I cannot allow my brother to remain on this earth. I believe that I had wiped his memory from the world years ago. Nothing of Javed Khan must remain alive. You must be killed or become my slave. So he makes her his slave. And she says, I am not the daughter of Java Khan. She doesn't have the thing. And some other people go, nope. His mother is like, no, she doesn't have the birthmark. And he's like, I don't care. She's gonna be my slave now. So they tell her, he kidnaps her, and she's gonna be his slave. And they really torture her. They do a number on her. They put her in the stocks and naked, and they do stuff to her, and it's just, and I'm sitting there going, so was it worth it, Valentina? You could have stayed home. You had to know. You wanted to know. You got on your self-righteous horse, and you wanted to know, was all this worth it? Was being whipped and abused by foreigners and all that kind of stuff, all the stuff that they did to her in public, was it worth it, Valentina? That's what I was screaming at this point. Was it worth it? So, why should you, my innocent English lady? This world of mine is far different from yours, or so I have been told. Let me explain to you, so that you will not think Java Khan a cruel and unfeeling Tartar prince who deserted your sweet mother and left her to cruel fate. The morning your mother awakened me to kiss me farewell, I wanted to make love to her, but she laughingly chided me that there was no time. Thank God I heeded her, or she would have died at my brother's hands. I remember telling her I would have my revenge on her that evening. With a smile she departed, and that was the last time he ever saw Aiden's mother. He was dressed, he went down to the stables. His brother's people tried to kill him. he was taken off and hidden and healed, and you can read that part of the story later. So she's rescued the first time, and she agrees to marry Pardic upon returning home to England. But they've got to. She wants to do the shopping I mentioned previously, and she gets kidnapped again. I have lost you, cried the Earl of Kemp on seeing Valentina for the first time in 3 weeks. I knew I should not have remained here while you made your journey. They stood, Valentina, Patrick, Murrow, Tom, Ashburn, and the open-mouthed Nelda with the privacy of the ship's main cabin. Valentina caught his hands in hers and looked up into his handsome face. Tom, dearest Tom, you never had me, so you cannot have lost me. I think I have loved Patrick my entire life. And she goes about that. So she confesses her love to Patrick in front of everybody and tells everybody she's going to marry him. And then this guy decides that he's going to kidnap her when she goes shopping. And he does. And I said the servants will believe anything that their master tells them. And he says, I am Gulfham, she said in a sweet, clear voice. 2 young women appeared by Gulfham's side. These are my companions, Sa and Hayes. We have been told that you are to be called Nakash, which means the beautiful one. My name is Valentina St. Michael's, Lady Barrows, and I shall answer to no other name, she said angrily. You must not distress yourself, Nakish, Gulfham said gently. It is always difficult at first for a new slave to adjust, but in a few days everything will seem quite normal to you. I am not a slave, Valentina says. Outraged, with difficulty she struggled to a sitting position. Her head whirled, then cleared. She suddenly realized that she and 3 other women were totally naked for delicate gold finger chains that sat upon their hip bones. Where are my clothes? She demanded. It is not permitted that we wear clothing within this starlight kiosk. When we walk outdoors in the gardens, however, or travel to and from our Lord's place, we are suitably garbed. And who is your Lord? Who is this man who has dared kidnap me off the streets of Istanbul in defiance? It is not permitted that we reveal our Lord's name to you. You are not yet worthy to know it. And she's gulled, and she's washed and bathed and dressed and drugged continuously. And they plot to get her out. Padra's people finally talk to Kara, and Kara's like, you idiots, the guy that you're asking to help you find Valentine knows exactly where she is because she's the kidnapper's best friend. And he knows exactly where she is. So you're going to have to go. They form this plan. Kara helps. And in the meantime, the other side is planning to get back at the Jewish people. They're formulating a plan about the Jewish people stealing from the banks because they control the banks. And that doesn't end well. The people will believe the Jews are to blame for the debasement of the coinage because it is just the sort of thing that one might expect from Jews. They are greedy, venal, avaricious people, as their history has shown. Even the Christian West, with its teachings by the prophet Jesus that advises man to turn the other cheek and to love his neighbors, has not made its people love the Jews any more than we love the Jews. Nevertheless, the third advisor spoke up hastily, forgetting to obtain permission. The Jews are very good citizens. They pay their taxes without question and contribute much of value to the economy of the empire. If this action you contemplate, my lord Sultan, should spread to other cities, there would be more harm done than good. Well, we have to blame someone for the coinage thing. So they're going to do it. So they're going to follow through. In the course of all this, Kira and her family get killed. And just what it is we have stolen from the people, demanded the matriarch. You do not frighten me with your talk of death, for I have lived so long now that death is merely another adventure. But if you would slaughter me in a dishonorable fashion, I wish to know why." The crowd shuffled its feet. The Jews in the ghetto below had hidden or tried to flee the mob. When caught, they had bargained for their lives, and when the mob had wrung from its frightened, babbling victims all the treasure it could, it had pitilessly and with much laughter murdered them right on the spot. The Kyrus, however, stood facing them and demanding to know the charge against them. "It is your fault that the currency has been debased." "Our fault?" The lady was incredulous. "Why is it our fault? Everyone knows that the Sultan and his mother have been clipping the coinage in the treasury before releasing it back into circulation. The fact that no one dared speak the truth aloud does not make it any less true." And the people call treason, and Kira is killed. And Valentina is reunited with Patrick, and she makes a deal. She's taking a family back. She says, you've killed all these people. She gets into it with the government the Sultan's people, and she rescues some of Kira's family, about 10 or 15 people, and she takes them on the ship with her. So Captain Haston made a respectable obeisance to the visor, calling out 24 of his men. He began to clear a path, murmuring mob for the Kira children and their guardians. "Farewell, my lord," Sika Valentina said, and turned away from him. "Farewell, Nakasha," he called. She did not acknowledge him. She had never accepted the name, and now again in her own identity she would not do so. She was Valentina St. Michael. She was the only daughter of Aidan St. Michael, and her father, the true and only father, was Con O'Malley. Because she found out that the other guy, through the mother, that he was rendered impotent and unable to father any children over 20 years, so she was obviously not his child either. So then this is the winter of 1602. And so they came home to England, Archangel Royal Bess, and homeward bound, plowing their way up the Thames to London in a blinding snowstorm Christmas Day, 1602. Lord's Burke cabin was taken over by the 5 oldest surviving Kerr boys. Only 8 and a half, Don, Simon, Sarah, eldest son, and his 7-year-old cousin Jacob, eldest child of Asher and Ruth, completely understood the truth, but for Sabra and other children, the family was dead and their home was gone. Dov's 5-year-old brother Aaron, Cain, and Shohan's 2-year-old twin sons, Zork and Zarel, did not understand. They cried for their mothers to the deep anguish of Sabra, who tried to mother all of her nieces and nephews while coping with the terrible loss. And they take them all to the Kiras in London. So they do that, and then she heads home. She gets to Pirac Royal. "Have you found your answers you sought?" Khan asked her. "There is no doubt that you are my father. I will tell you of our entire adventure if you will take me inside. 'Tis freezing out." His arm around his daughter, Lord Brisk, brought her into the house, where her mother and several of Valentina's siblings were excitedly waiting. Colin, Peyton, and Jemmy were on her at once, kissing her and grinning with delight. Aidan flew forward to hug her daughter, her lovely eyes wet with tears. "You are safe, thank God. You have no idea how I've worried." "Oh, Mama, I know you have worried, but now I am home, quite safe, and I'm planning to wed my cousin Patrick." "Wed Patrick?" Aidan's glance flew to her nephew, then back to her daughter. "Oh my, oh my." "Now, Mama," Valentina teased her. "Haven't you wanted me to marry again, and who better than Patrick, who seems has loved me since I was a child, but felt I should wed a greater name than he had to offer. Can you ever hear a ridiculous thing?" "God's nightshirt," swore Colin St. Michael. "Ned Barrows was no great name or fortune." "Precisely." Spoken like a true O'Malley, Con chuckled. "I hope you have all the other charm and talents bringing to O'Malley women." Seeing Patrick blush, Con whooped with laughter. "So she does, eh, my lord?" "We are not O'Malleys," said an elegant little voice. "We are St. Michaels." "Your father is an O'Malley, child, and had he not agreed to take my name so that the St. Michael name might not die out, you would be called O'Malley," Aidan explained to her youngest. Valentine was astounded what a difference months had made. The gangly girl who left behind was shortly to be 15 and bloomed into an exquisite loveliness. Maggie, you are beautiful. Do you think I should remain a child, Val? I am very much a woman, I assure you. Um, let's see. So she sat regally in a high-backed tapestry chair in their midst, Patrick standing by her side. She began slowly choosing her words carefully, making them see the things she had seen. San Lorenzo's charming little capital city with its rainbow-colored houses, the exquisite temple on the Greek islands. She told them of Duke C. Lorenzo, who had wished to marry her, telling the story lightly in order to ease her mother's anxiety and avoid shocking her younger sister. And then she explained about the gypsy dancers, Murrow, Patrick, and Tom Ashford, and all that other stuff. Um, and then they're gonna marry in the spring, and then Lord Burke says, "No, we're gonna marry on January 1st." And his aunt says, "No, 2 days is not." And she goes, "No, we don't have to send for anybody else. We know there's snow outside. We're gonna marry in 2 days." So they get married in 2 days, and then Skye. And Skye asks her, um, Patrick told you, didn't he? Valentina sighed. She came and sat on a small tapered stool at her aunt's side. Patrick told me what he knows, which I suspect is very little. I can guess the rest. I cannot tell Mamma, Valentina said. She will only wring her hands and say she warned me not to go. I had to. And Skye, I needed to learn that Java Khan was not my father. I needed to know that Sultan Murad was not my father. I had to be certain that Papa was really my father. I cannot explain it further. I simply had to learn the truth. Was it worth the cost, Valentina? Valentina had become lost in thought for a long moment. Then she said, I have learned, Aunt, that everything in this world has a price, even knowledge. I do not think I could have lived in peace the rest of my life with Mag's words in my heart. I had to learn the truth. If I paid a dreadful price for the truth, yes, it was worth it. Yes, I know it was right for me to go. Yet one thing puzzles me, and I cannot reason it out of my mind. What puzzles you, my dear? Skye stroked her niece's dark head. How can a woman hate and despise a man, yet still react to his lovemaking? How can a woman give a man pleasure when she does not want to give him pleasure? There are two forms of rape, Valentina. There is the violent rape where a man forces a woman to a will. Then there's seductive rape. Because it is worse, for deduction is difficult to deal with. After all, the surroundings are pleasant and comfortable. The man is persistent but loving. He will have his way with you whether you will or not, but he will have it in kindly rather than a violent fashion. And he uses drugs too. Drugs, as Eve Dallas has Rohypnol and Rabbit and all those other kind of drugs. They had many drugs in this century to make women, even though their minds were screaming and yelling, no, 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 their bodies was accepting what the man was doing. So they do all that. And then Valentine St. Michael Burroughs, Lady Burroughs, a widow, joined in holy matrimony with her cousin Patrick Lord Burke, a bachelor, on the first day of January in the year of our Lord 1603. This small, intimate affair was attended by the bride's parents, 3 brothers, younger sister, the bridegroom's mother, stepfather, elder brother, his wife and children, 2 elder sisters, their husbands and children, and also Thomas Ashbourne, the Earl of Kemp. He kept his promise and showed up. So they go through what they wear, and the previous day, Lord Burke had asked his stepfather, Lord de Moscow, to stand with him as his best man. I have called you Adam all my life to please Mamma, but although a man named Niall Burke fathered me, you are the only father I have never known. You've been a good father to me, and I love you. Although I know those words are not the one man normally says to another, I still would have you know it, and it would please me greatly if you would stand with me when I wed Val. Adam de Moscow was 72 years of age, and there had been a few times in his life when he wept openly. Tears of happiness sprang to his life. He loved Patrick Burke as he might have loved a son of his own flesh. There had been no sons, only his beloved daughter Velvet, and while he had never voiced it, Skye's younger son, Patrick, was almost dear to him of all his children excepting their own daughter. No, I did not father you to my regret, but you have been my son since the day I wed your mother. I could have not fathered a better son. I, Patrick, I will stand with you, and I am proud that you asked. So it brings little tears to one's eyes. It's a little heart wrenching. Um, while waiting for the ceremony to begin, Lady Damasco looked fondly at her husband and her son Burke, thinking how very fortunate they all were to have one another, how blessed they were to love one another. Not all of the family were here for the wedding. Skye's eldest two sons, Ewan and Murray of Flaherty, and the families had not been able to attend. Her youngest daughter, Velvet, the Countess of Brockern, and her family lived in Scotland. Of course, Dame Cicely and her brother, Sir Robert, were both dead. Skye's tears felt the prickling of the back of her eyelids. God, how she missed Robbie and his wonderful sister. She's got to interrupt. Ding, 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 ding. 12 twice in less than a half hour. She's got to. Um, uh, Dame Cicely and her brother Sir Robert Small were both dead. Skye's felt tears pricking the back of her eyelids. God, how she missed Robbie, and his wonderful sister Dame Cicely had loved and mothered Skye for years than her own mother had. God assoiled both their souls. What is it, little girl? Adam, ever watchful, was sensitive to his wife's mercurial moods. I was thinking of Robbie and Dame Cicely, she answered softly. It seems so strange to have an important family event without them. They have always been with us, always. He nodded. Sir Robert Small, Skye's business partner for over 40 years, had died the previous winter, having caught a chill while ice skating on the lake at Queen's Malvern with some of Skye's many grandchildren. Skye had turned 82 just before he died. It was a difficult loss for them all, especially for his sister. Dame Cicely had taken care of her brother for most of their lives, and the separation was simply too much for the lady to bear. He will not be able to go on without me, she fretted in the days following her brother's passing. Then several weeks later she began to insist that all would listen. Robbie says I must come and join him, for he is lonely without me. She died a few days later, 2 days past her 84th birthday. They buried her next to her beloved younger brother. Excuse me. Robbie and Dame Cicely are here in their own way. Adam said to his wife, do you think they would miss a family wedding? Skye looked up into her husband's face. I do not like the business of growing old. You old? Ha! You'll never be old, little girl, nor I will. Make me believe it, Adam. Come home with me, Skye, and they go off to do adult stuff. Wait, what did I want to do for that? Okay. Paddock gave it to his wife, please. He suggested first they go home to Clearfields, and then in the spring, when traveling would be easier, go up to court, but Valentina would have none of it. Spring will be too late, and she goes to see the queen, and the queen dies. Three of Lady Damasco's sons, Lord Robert Southwood held the greatest and oldest title of any of them. He was a charming man with a youthful countenance, despite the fact that he was entering his 40th year. He had fathered 8 children, the eldest 3 with his first wife, who had died giving birth to their daughter in less than 3 years. The 2 elder daughters, Elizabeth and Catherine, had been recently married and happily settled. The third daughter, Annie, 16, would be married in the summer. The Earl's younger children were the offspring of his second marriage, a great love match. The Countess of Lynmouth had been a poor orphan under the Queen's protection when Robin Southwood spied her. Having met her, nothing would do but marry her, which he did, with the Queen's blessing. Neither had ever regretted the hasty match and envied their happiness. Their children, Geoffrey 13, John age 11, Charles 8, Thomas 6, and Laurie 3. We can travel in my coach, the Earl said. 'Tis larger and better sprung than yours. The children can have yours. Thank you, brother, Lord Burke replied. I just had my coach refurbished inside and out. I do not intend on having your sticky-fingered offspring destroying my new velvet seats. The children may have your coach. You and Angel can ride with us. I shall have to have my coach refurbished with those savages of mine complete the trip to London. Papa, Pretty, and Southwood wore a look of outrage. You do not expect you to ride in the coach with my 4 brothers, do you? Perhaps you would prefer riding atop the coach, he teased her. Would to be preferable, my lord, I do assure you. The Countess of Lynmouth intervened on her stepdaughter's behalf. I have arranged to borrow a small coach from your grandmother Annie. If you do not object to sharing the carriage with your little sister and her nursemaid, then perhaps you should be happier riding with them. So they go off, and the Queen passes away, and I just and then Valentina tells Patrick that she is with child. And the book ends with Christmas 1605. On Christmas Day, 1605, there was an enormous gathering in the family chapel of Queen's Malvern, the home of Lord and Lady de Moscow, the Earl and Countess of Lundy. On this day, Lord and Lady Burke's second child and their first son was to be christened. Attending the gathering were the proud father's 3 older brothers, Ewan O'Flaherty, the master of Balhanacy, who had traveled from Ireland with his wife across a winter sea to attend the event. Captain Murrow O'Flaherty and Robert Southwood, the Earl of Lynmouth, 2 of Lord Burke's 3 sisters, along with their respective mates, were there. Lady Willow Edwards, the Countess of Alshire, and Deidre Blakely, Lady Blackthorn. There was also a huge variety of assorted nieces and nephews. Lord Burke's youngest sister, Velvet, the Countess of Brockton, was still in Scotland. She and her husband had family would be coming south in the spring to join King James's court. On the maternal side, the guest of honor was represented by 2 of her mother, Valentina's sisters, and their husbands. He looks exactly like Pedrick did at that age, Skye said. He's just the sweetest little baby. You only say that because you are a most doting grandmother, said Valentina to her aunt, cradling her son discreetly. He's actually a shameless, greedy, gluttonous piglet, aren't you, my angel? She said while nursing him. That Adam may read you into the Emperor's letter. As you will see, he really had no choice. Now we will prepare ourselves and our family to accept the existence of this child and welcome her into our family, a family that finds itself in an uproar of... Oh. I missed it. Okay, let me go back here. Well, little girl, 45 grandchildren. The great hall at Malvern's was decorated for the 12 days of Christmas with pine, laurel, holly, and bay leaves. Great beeswax candles burned everywhere in the main fireplace, and the hall were gigantic. Yew logs at the high board and at the tables just below. Skye, Adam, Con, and Aidan, and all of their children watched contentedly as the descendants scrambled happily about the hall. A fine feast was served, and many cups of wine drunk to the baby's good health. Well, little girl, Adam de Moscow said affectionately to his wife, who had been unusually quiet, 45 grandchildren. So we have 5 to go, eh? 46 grandchildren, Adam, Skye said softly. I have not forgotten, he replied, but our little princess is the one we may never talk about. We are going to have to talk about her sooner than later, my lord. She informed her husband. I received a message this very day from India. A servant of the emperor himself brought it. Even now the messenger warms herself in our kitchen. Adam looked puzzled. The birthday pearl It is that time of year again, is it not, my love? Has the pearl arrived? She is 15 now, is she not? Aye, she is 15 and will be in London by the end of January, Adam. What? Lord de Moscow nearly choked on his wine. The granddaughter we have never been able to acknowledge, the child whose existence has always been a secret from our whole family. The little princess of ours be in London by the end of next month. Her father was sent to live with us. Her father has sent her to live with us. She is to remain in England. But why now after all these years? Adam asked his wife, voicing his voice lower in case those years about them were curious to listen. That, Adam, you may read for yourself in the Emperor's letter. Excuse me. Um, uh, Lord V. Mascabian, Madam, he said, I thank God every day of my life you are mine. You are welcome. I, little girl, I most certainly welcome her. Surely you do not think I will not. She is my granddaughter, my own flesh and blood. Annie de Moscow said, then fill his laughter burst. What I should like to inquire is so amusing, Willow demanded of her parents. She had always hoped that the age would finally mellow them. Your mother and I were discussing our 46th grandchild, Willow dear. 46th grandchild, Papa. There are about 45. When is this 46 due, Papa? A great sooner than you think, Willow. My dear, Lord de Moscow burst into laughter. She began laughing too, and Willow looked askance at her mother and father. Might they be drunk? Papa, I do not comprehend your meaning. You will very shortly, Willow, my dear. Indeed, you will very shortly. And that ends Lost Love of Mine. And we will. Where is it over here? Um, Darling Jasmine and Wild Jasmine. Please hit the like and subscribe. Let me know I'm doing a good job. I hope you enjoyed this with me. Please check out my Star Trek Friday Next Generation recaps, my If Then issues, and Romantic Times book review, and of course, my daily book reviews. Thank you so much for joining me.